Welcome to Meaningful Mornings. Last week, I had the all season tires changed to winter tires on the car that our family drives. And one of the tires was too damaged to be repaired. So I left it on the driveway for the kids to play with. Such creative parenting. That's what you should be thinking right now. And then I was sharing with them that we have to be careful that water doesn't accumulate in this tire, in this rim, because mosquitoes are the most dangerous animal. And then I tried to explain that to them. Now, making this more meaningful to us, I've set up the visualization, now the philosophy. All of us have been near a body or vessel where the water has stagnated. Agreed? It could be a pond, it could be a pot. And so water that stagnates smells. Perhaps we can call that a anatma vasana. Vasana means smell. The smell could be stinky or fragrant. Now, what one can do with this water that has become stagnant or foul is you put fresh water in there. And initially, that water is still going to smell, but eventually, all of that stinky water will flow out of that pond or pot, and there will only be fresh water. Atma Vasana. In our journey, when you start to reflect, which means you start to personalize, the first smell you're going to experience is a stink. The anatma vasana that's filled with anger, filled with greed, and so on. If you are steady with satsang, seva, sadhana, associating with the right people, engaging in the right service, with the right disciplines, eventually those vices will be converted into virtues. Whenever you find how jealous you are, how dejected you are, understand that that's temporary. If you wish it to be temporary. If you don't want this to be temporary, then it won't be. It'll be forever. The choice is yours on putting in fresh water or letting that water stagnate. Bhagavad Gita's chapter 2 is the syllabus of Bhagavad Gita, the table of contents. Chapters 3 to 14 are the specifics. The syllabus, or the table of contents, chapter by chapter, is made more specific, is opened up for us. In chapter 16, verse 1, the theme of verse 1 is, what is the role of faith in our lives? In verse 2, Shri Krishna shares, there are faiths. There's faith that makes one feel lazy, aggressive, quiet. In verse 3, Shri Krishna shares, you are your faith. More than the reflection in the mirror, as your faith, so are you. And in verse 4, this gets expressed, as your faith, so your purpose. Some of us, we don't know who we are. So a gauge of that is your purpose. For some of us, we don't know what our purpose is. So ask yourself, where are you investing your resources, time, and energy or effort? That is your purpose. You can't hide that. In verse 5 and 6, Sri Krishna is describing those who have less faith in themselves, so they are less and do less, as well as those who have little faith, they are little and do little. If I can add one more reflection here, those who have little faith live lives that are busy. I've shared this multiple times. A busy person is loud inside and loud outside. I have so much to do. Look at me. And in being like this, they do very little. But the one who's not busy, they're quiet inside and quietly are doing far more than the busy person. They don't comment on, I have so much to do, look at me, because they're quiet. They have faith in who they are, what they're doing. And so the word for them is they're not busy, they're engaged. In verse 7, we have the syllabus for this chapter. Today is 1086 of Meaningful Mornings. If I don't try to teach in a creative way, all of you would have checked out a long time ago, correct? So we went from snow tires to stagnant water. We went from chapter 2 syllabus to chapter 17 syllabus. Yes? Here's where you'll say, thank you, Vivekji. In verse 7, we have the syllabus for this chapter and seed for the next chapter. In this syllabus, there are 4 components: ahara, yajna, tapa, dana. I'll change it into English and see how this plays out. It's lovely, very logical. Ahara is what you input. Remember, it's not just food. It's whatever you bring near to you. Even your associations are ahara. What kind of people do you bring near to you? That is your input. Then, yajna is dedication, which really means now that I've inputted it, what do I do with this? When we think of dedication, we think of dynamism. We think of being outward. So ahara is input, yajna is output. Then, if you're dedicated, there has to be tapa, which means sacrifice. Sacrifice. You're sacrificing. That's another form of being inward looking. I'm sacrificing that which is unhealthy. I'm sacrificing that which I don't need. And that leads to dana, which again is output. So input in a physical way, dedication is output in a metaphysical way. It's your purpose. Then input in a sacrifice way, that is both physical and metaphysical. Physical, you do give your resources and time, but metaphysical, you give up my attachment to articles, beings, and circumstances. And so there's more output then. One lives a life of dana or generosity. Does that make sense, everyone? Okay. If I can just share it in one more way to visualize, it's almost like the diamond I've often referred to. Satsang, seva, sadhana, seva. You input, you output. Seva is output, correct? But then you make it much more awesome through sadhana. That's more inputting. And then seva, your output is just of a different dimension. Now, this syllabus has to be opened up into specifics. We are on verse 8. It is not a very philosophical verse, but I'll add some reflections. Ayu sattva balarogya sukha priti vivardhanaha rasyas snigdha stira hridyaha ahara satvika priyaha. Joy. Aharaha. That's the first in the sequence of 4, our syllabus. Syllabus part 1 is on ahara, what you input. Priyaha, referring to Prince Arjuna. This does describe you. The word priya is sharing with Prince Arjuna. This is describing you. What kind of faith do you have? Sattvika. Your faith is of a quiet nature. Your input is of a quiet nature too. Clear? Now, what does sattvic food look like? Here, Sri Krishna specifies food. What does food that makes you quiet look like? Ayuhu. It helps in terms of longevity. Then, sattva. It is purer, or another way to describe this is fresher. Next, bala. It makes one feel stronger or energetic. Next is, I like this, arogya. It helps with one's immunity or resistance to becoming ill. For those who are joining Seeking Culture tonight, our value is stamina. In the youth camps that I teach at, in the young adult retreats and the evolving adult retreats I teach at, we always play soccer. We have mandatory athletics, and I'm always underwhelmed by people's stamina. It's too hot, Vivekji. We need to drink water, Vivekji. Let's play at night, Vivekji. No arogya. Sukha. It is food that makes one cheerful. Priti. It is food that is pleasant. Prince Arjuna, you are dear to me, which means you should have faith in yourself. If you still want to cultivate faith, input that which is sattvic, and input we engage in multiple times a day, even during meaningful mornings, is food. This food should help our longevity, freshness, strength, stamina. We should be cheerful. This should be pleasant. Rasyaha, it should be savory. Snigdaha, I don't even know how to pronounce this word. Oleaginous? I don't know, gelatinous? Who knows? Viscous? Stiryaha, it should be substantial. And hridyaha, it should be agreeable. These are some technical words about the type of food we should eat, like food that should be chewed and food that should be sucked, etc. I'll try to bring some philosophy into this. Pujaswami Tejomayananda has shared. If you eat the right food, this is what you will feel like. You will feel like cravings do not grow. If you've eaten the right food, you won't crave more. So if you ever feel you're craving more food, the right food wasn't eaten, or the sattvic food wasn't eaten. Fine, but here's the high attrition part. If you eat the right food, you will feel like working more. For us, food coma is a regular experience. After I eat, I don't want to work. So that's a good gauge if you're eating the right food. Here's one more reflection. Whatever one eats, suppose I eat an apple, the tamasic or grossest part of this apple gets excreted. Sweat, urine, feces, etc. The rajasic part, that is not the grossest, but the subtle part of food, becomes our body. So the saying, you are what you eat, is very true. And the sattvic part of food, that's the causal part of food, becomes your mind. So if you have an exam to engage in, if you're in the highest vocation where you have to use your mind in a causal way, eat the right food. I'll review some of these terms tomorrow. They're not that important. It's the philosophy that is important. From inspiration to application, your application yesterday was to be part of our asana program. How many of you joined this morning? A lot of you joined and just wish that you were doing what they were doing. So do it. When we start the Yoga Sutra next year, asanas to balance the body, pranayamas to balance the breath. What's after that? Pratyahara. Pratyahara, which is to balance the mind. Just like food becomes your body and mind, you have to balance the body and breath to be able to balance the mind. Your application for this morning is to register for the Happiness Series. It is December 4th to the 6th from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. I will be speaking from Chicago for those who are around. The methodology of this year's Happiness Series is to change why we do what we do. From people to purpose to presence. So register and also register someone else. Whether they like it or not, put someone else's email address in there. I sign up for so many things and put Sheila's email address so the newsletter goes to her, not to me. So register and force register another. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Be joy.